Lexington firefighters did everything they could to save a man buried in a trench collapse. We talked to neighbors nearby that saw some very emotional moments.
A man accused of murdering a 6-year-old boy while he was sleeping is back in court. Coming up, we're taking a look at why his attorney says it's as if someone else is responsible.
Looking for widespread rain to move on in as we travel throughout the rest of the afternoon. I'm going to go through that forecast for you coming up next.
WKYT News starts now with breaking news.
Good afternoon from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant here with Barbara Bailey, and firefighters have confirmed that a man has been killed in a trench collapse in Lexington. It happened about 9:30 this morning on Todd's Road at Hayes Boulevard.
Now, Officer Don Evans flew over the scene as rescue crews tried to reach the man, but he was already covered by the time they got there. WKYT's Caitlin Sentner is live now with the latest breaking details.
A very sad update this afternoon to an already horrifying story. Now you can see behind me here some crews are still on scene of what was an attempted trench rescue situation. Unfortunately, firefighters tell us they weren't able to save the man, a husband, a father of 3, who was working inside that trench when it collapsed on him. Now here's a look at what that trench does look like. Firefighters say when they got here, the man was already buried inside the 20-foot trench. Right now, they don't know what led up to the trench collapse or if recent rains were a factor in ground stability. It's also not clear what company the man worked for or who he was contracted through. Firefighters say this is an absolute horrifying situation. Many people were standing by, peeking through their backyards as firefighters did everything they could. One man whose backyard overlooks the scene told us he thought the man's co-workers were trying to save him when firefighters arrived.
It wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty, especially when they made them get out of the ditch. The guys kind of threw their shovels down like they were, they were mad.
Assistant Chief Harold Hoskins said that's their biggest concern right now, that there could be a secondary collapse. They'll be here doing a thorough investigation for a number of hours. OSHA has been contacted. Now, the man's family is here, including his father. A very sad story today. Live in Lexington, Caitlin Sentner, WKYT.
Caitlin, thank you. The Lexington Fire Department is asking drivers to avoid the block of Todd's Road between the Walnut Ridge neighborhood and Hayes Boulevard. Outbound Todd's Road can be accessed by Hayes Boulevard.
Very difficult situation here at midday. Well, a man accused of murdering a 6-year-old during a Central Kentucky home invasion was back in front of a judge today. Ronald Exantis has pleaded not guilty to murder, burglary, and assault charges. Police say he killed Logan Tipton and injured other members of the little boy's family in that Woodford County attack back in December. WKYT's Mark Barber is in Versailles now with more on what happened during the hearing. Mark?
Ronald Exantis' attorney says this is one of the exceptionally rare cases where there's just no explanation for what happened. She tells me he had a psychotic break and does not remember anything. The 32-year-old was booked back into the Woodford County Detention Center 2 days ago after spending the past few months in a state psychiatric hospital. Exantis' attorney says doctors kept him there much longer than they normally keep patients because it took them weeks to snap him out of psychosis. According to his attorney, Exantis is now heavily medicated and mentally stable. The Indiana man was arrested 5 months ago after police say he broke into a home in Versailles and stabbed a sleeping 6-year-old boy to death. Logan Tipton's family filled 2 rows in the courtroom this morning, wearing the young football player's jersey number. The judge pushed attorneys to set another date in the case next month, saying he does not want the high-profile case to last any longer than necessary.
At this point, though, we're probably going to start getting some deadlines to figure out where we're headed.
Exantis could face the death penalty if he is convicted of murder. The state psychiatric evaluation of the 32-year-old is due when he is back in court on June 1st. The evaluation will be used to determine if he is competent to stand trial. In Woodford County, Mark Barber, WKYT.
Well, there are indications this will be a long process. Exantis' attorney thinks it will be at least another year before the case could go to trial.
Well, it's another day of showers and storms and below normal temperatures, but things are looking up for the Oaks and Derby weekend. WKYT meteorologist Micah Harris is live in our First Alert Weather Center now with a look ahead. Micah.
Yeah, and some of these showers now pushing in our western zones is perfect on the timing as we were talking about early this morning. And look, all that's moving over toward the east and southeast. Now, it's a wall of showers right now. No real thunderstorms involved just yet. But I do believe the farther east and southeast it goes, the better likelihood of actually seeing a strike of lightning of two. But remember, this isn't widespread thunderstorms. This is mainly just showers with a few embedded thunderstorms. Now it's trucking on through. Frankfort now getting at least some sprinkles out of this. Lexington, we're next in line here in about an hour as we start to see that rain move on in, and the heaviest rain will continue to push east and southeast. You'll see these temperatures in the 60s actually drop as we travel off into the afternoon, but the highs for today, they're in the lower 60s with that gusty rain. I'm going to talk all about that and also chilly conditions coming up.
All right, all the forecasts coming in just a bit. Thank you, Micah. Texas Senator Ted Cruz has dropped out of the GOP presidential race. It clears the way for Donald Trump to become the party's nominee and take on the likely Democratic nominee, Hillary Clinton.
Craig Boswell has the latest from the campaign trail.
Ted Cruz suspended his campaign Tuesday night.
We gave it everything we've got, but the voters chose another path.
The decision came after Donald Trump walloped him in the Indiana primary.
I didn't expect this. I didn't expect it. And what Ted did is really a very brave thing to do.
The reality is now apparent. Trump will likely get the majority of GOP delegates and become the party's presidential nominee. RNC Chairman Reince Priebus tweeted out that Trump will be the presumptive nominee and says it's time for the Republican Party to unite behind its new leader.
This is what today starts, which is this unification process.
But not everyone is ready to unify behind Trump, including John Kasich, who is still in the race.
Lost in all the drama surrounding the GOP race is the fact that Bernie Sanders pulled off the upset win over Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primary.
I know all the pundits thought we were supposed to lose, but that apparently was not what the people of Indiana concluded.
The bad news for Sanders is that even after his win, Clinton is now 92% of the way towards locking up the nomination. Craig Boswell, CBS News, the White House.
Now, within the last few minutes, we've learned Ohio Governor John Kasich has canceled events today and scheduled an announcement in the Buckeye State this afternoon. There are reports he's planning to suspend his presidential campaign as well. Sanders will be talking with voters about his plans to fix what he says is a rigged economy during a rally in Lexington tonight. The rally will be held at Heritage Hall. Doors are scheduled to open at 4 o'clock, and Sanders will take the stage at 7.
Well, a judge heard more arguments from attorneys for Governor Matt Bevin about why a lawsuit against him should be dropped. The governor was sued by the Democratic Attorney General Andy Beshear after he cut funding to higher education through an executive order. Beshear says the governor has overstepped his authority, but Bevin says there are statutes that allow his actions. WKYT's Hillary Thornton is live in Frankfort now with the latest on the case. Hillary?
Good afternoon, Bill. The hearing here inside of Franklin County Circuit Court lasting nearly 2 hours, giving both sides the opportunity to verbally argue the briefs that have been filed in the case. Now, that started with the governor's counsel making their case for why they believe this lawsuit should be thrown out. Governor Bevin's attorneys focusing on 2 statutes and the difference between the terms appropriation and allocation. They say the governor fully agrees the General Assembly is the only entity that can appropriate money. Setting a spending ceiling, however, they argue it then becomes the job of the governor to decide how to spend that money. Now, governor's attorneys say KRS 48620 gives him the ability to spend less than that ceiling where he feels it is necessary. He went on to say that Governor Bevin wants to get rid of the spend it or lose it mindset. It was then the Attorney General's turn. Andy Beshear starting his argument with saying the Constitution of Kentucky first reads, "We the people, not me the governor," leading to his point that allowing the mid-year cuts would give the governor power outside of his authority, saying it would essentially make the governor a king and is simply unconstitutional. Governor Bevin's attorneys say while he hopes funds from the cuts would go toward the pension problem, they agree he does not have the power to decide where specifically the money from the cuts go, that it must then go to the general fund where then the next legislature would decide how it is spent. Now, Bashir says that because of that, he should go ahead and restore the more than $18 million to universities, since it will just sit there and since he will have funds from the cuts in the upcoming budget that soon goes into effect. Now, no decision was made here today in court. Bashir says he hopes the judge will make a decision within the next week. For now, live in Frankfort, Hillary Thornton, WKYT.
Hillary, thank you. Of course, the ruling could be precedent-setting, and the judge commended both sides for their professionalism and thoroughness in the case so far. Well, right after the hearing, Bashir told reporters that his office is pursuing state charges now against Timothy Longmire. Longmire resigned his post as Deputy Attorney General under Bashir in March after he was charged with federal crimes. Longmire pleaded guilty to taking kickbacks while he served as Secretary of the State Personnel Cabinet under former Governor Steve Bashir. Bashir, the Attorney General, says he expects to file those state charges soon.
Evangelist and son of the Reverend Billy Graham is in Frankfort at this noon hour. This is a live look at a prayer rally being led by Franklin Graham. It just got underway on the steps of the Capitol. This is the 21st stop in his Decision America tour of all 50 states, talking about politics, spirituality, and the state of our nation. Well, of course, the Run for the Roses is Saturday, but there'll be a different kind of race on the river tonight.
Rolling on the river, right? The Belle of Louisville and the Belle of Cincinnati will battle it out on the Ohio in the annual Great Steamboat Race. The Belle of Louisville has won the last 2 years in a row. The boats are competing for bragging rights and, of course, for the symbolic silver-plated antlers as well. That's the trophy.
Well, yes.
So see how it goes later today. All right, we're learning more now about a Navy SEAL who was killed in an ISIS attack in Iraq. And we'll have the latest coming up on Kentucky's #1 Midday News.
Also ahead, the President and First Lady are talking trash ahead of the Invictus Games this weekend in Orlando. We'll show you their video challenge next on WKYT. Welcome back to WKYT News at noon. A Navy SEAL who was killed in Iraq by a member of ISIS has now been identified.
Arizona native Charles Keating IV died during the firefight between militants and Kurdish troops near the city of Erbil. Keating is the third American killed in the U.S.-led fight against the Islamic State. His grandfather, Charles Keating Jr., who died back in 2014, was a notorious financier who served prison time for his role in the costliest savings and loan failure back in the 1980s. President Obama is in Flint, Michigan at this noon hour. He's meeting with the community there about how they're managing the lead water contamination crisis. The White House says the president wants to use the trip to assure residents that federal help will continue even after the media leaves. The president declared a state of emergency in mid-January and ordered federal aid to supplement the state and local responses. Well, it helps to have friends in high places, especially when you're promoting an international sporting event.
Prince Harry released this video with his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, promoting the upcoming Invictus Games for wounded veterans. It starts with Harry and the Queen looking at an Invictus brochure when they get a video phone message from the President and First Lady accepting Harry's Invictus Games challenge.
Hey, Prince Harry, remember when you told us to bring it at the Invictus Games?
Careful what you wish for.
Oh, really? Please.
Boom.
Love it. At the Games, hundreds of competitors from more than a dozen countries compete in a range of sports, including wheelchair rugby, archery, rowing, and basketball. Harry is set to host this year's tournament, which kicks off at the Walt Disney World Resort in Orlando, Florida, this Sunday.
I'm Michelle Chamberlain. Coming up at 12:30, are you concerned about the Zika virus? I'll tell you what health department officials are doing about it here in Lexington, coming up.
Now, your zone-by-zone forecast with meteorologist Micah Harris.
Current conditions kind of depends on where you are because there is rain moving on in. So temperatures that you see right now, just hold on to it while you can because the rain's moving on in and that'll drop it a good 3 to 5 degrees once the rain does start. There's also some gusty winds along this front. Now, once the rain starts, you'll see some gusty winds move on in and also out ahead of this front, what you're going to be dealing with, look at the waves going on in the sky. There's some weird clouds out there. I'm getting it on Facebook. I'm getting these pictures on Twitter. These are called undulatus asperatus, okay? It's a weird word. It absolutely is a weird name for it. It's kind of its own category, but what it basically means is rough waves, and that's what you're seeing outside, and really, really cool pictures coming on in. If you have some pictures, snap it, send it to me, Micah Harris WX, and also Micah Harris WKYT. That's Twitter and Facebook. I'd love to show them off for you. That's out ahead of the rain. If you're under the rain, well, you're just going to be seeing rain. Let's talk about this. It's over Frankfort at the moment. Work your way up toward Williamstown. Now inching its way into Georgetown area. Lexington, we're next in line here. In roughly 30 minutes to an hour is when we start to see the heaviest rain move on in. You'll get some sprinkles. You'll get a light passing shower before that. But for the most part, the heaviest rain is still back toward your Shelby County area. And this is sliding east and southeast. If you're trying to get out and do some yard work, you'll be able to do it over towards, say, Moorhead, and then work your way down towards Somerset. That's around that 2 to 3 p.m. time frame. You start to see the rain move on in. But the rain timing for the rest of the afternoon, here's the breakdown of it. Now through 3 p.m., I'd say 3 p.m. at the latest from Moorhead to, say, Rockcastle County, down toward Pulaski to Wayne, and then it edges off toward the east and southeast. That's where you're looking at 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. So you have some time. Remember, this is mainly showers with a few rumbles of thunder. When those rumbles of thunder get going, no severe weather is expected, but you can still get some small pea-sized hail out of this as it travels on through. Friday, Saturday, guys, looks like the best chance to stay dry. However, Saturday still at this moment, I just checked new weather data, still looks like there is that possibility, a small chance at a couple of passing showers. We'll see. We'll see.
A couple hours ago, he was saying, this forecast is really working out today. So
yeah.
I know you. Once you put it out there, you hope it all works out. And we do for the Derby.
Yeah, absolutely.
Certainly. Thank you, Micah. We'll be back in a moment. Could depth finally be a strength for the Wildcat football team?
And the field for the Kentucky Oaks is set. Dave Baker's next with sports.
Been an interesting couple of days on Wall Street so far this weekend. Here at midday, the major market indicators are down.
The Derby draw-off takes place beginning at 5:30 tonight. You can see that and live racing on Oaks Day on just one place. That's the NBC Sports Network on cable, for those of you who are wondering. And guess what? The field is set for the 142nd Oaks. The only daughter of 2009 Oaks winner Rachel Alexander is the favorite. Rachel's Valentina drew the 11-hole Tuesday and is a 7-2 favorite to win the $1 million Oaks. Rachel's Valentina, she's on the inside here working along the rail with Stop Charging Maria. She was second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, second in the Ashland Stakes, both at Keeneland. Songbird, the heavy early favorite, out because of a lingering fever.
I'm a little concerned about the 1 1/8 with her. As good as she ran in the Ashland, especially with Songbird being out, I think she definitely deserves a chance. Her 5/8 work at Keeneland, as good as she worked and as good as she settled and just really handled herself real well, she's maturing mentally, and I think, we're going to take a shot.
On the annual SEC Spring Football Conference call a short while ago, Mark Stoops said that he was pleased with the progress his team had made during spring practice. And as Stoops heads into his 4th year, he's hoping to get his team bowl eligible for the first time. Athletics Director Mitch Barnhart likes this club, and depth is a big reason for his optimism.
We seem to have some depth in some positions, a couple of positions still a little thin in a couple of positions. But we're gaining some depth, and how can you tell that? Well, when you get to spring practice and some guys are not playing that have been playing. And that begins to tell you that there's some depth in our conversation, and our talent is, we're raising the level of talent that we've got in our program.
Tonight on the Big Blue Insider with Dick Gabriel, the voice of the Wildcats, and horse racing aficionado from Bourbon County, Tom Leach, and NBC sports racing analyst Lafitte Pinkai Jr. That's at 6 on 630 WLAP. Dick and videographer Steve Moss at Churchill Downs. They'll begin reporting for us on WKYT News at 4. Much more coming up on that later. Derby draw later today. But for now, guys, that's a look at sports on this Wednesday.
All right, Dave, thank you very much. And keep it here on WKYT News. A lot more coming up in our next half hour.
A southern Kentucky man has been killed in an ATV crash.
I'm Victor Puente in Scott County, where the investigation into the fire that destroyed a home yesterday is just beginning. Coming up at 12:30, I'll tell you why state police are involved.
Friday night's Mega Millions jackpot is $138 million, and tonight's Powerball jackpot is $348 million.